What's going on, everybody? It's Game Unboxing Reviews here, and welcome back to another LEGO Dimensions video. So obviously from the title you can tell what this video is going to be about. Yes, it's going to be about the top 5 franchises I would like to see in LEGO Dimensions. Now obviously, you know, we've had everything from Wave 1 to Wave 5, I believe. I think that's when they're stopping, and that's everything we know. You know, that's all we know for LEGO Dimensions so far. However, this game is going to be supported for many years to come, possibly even up to 2017 to 2018. It's going to be supported for years to come, so you won't actually have to buy a second starter pack. There isn't going to be a sequel to this game for a very long time, which is great to see because it's very different to other Toys to Life games that are currently available. Now then, another reason I'm doing this as well is because we've had no news for either LEGO Dimensions or LEGO Marvel. You know, we've had nothing at all, and I was really trying to think of something fun to do, something that you guys would probably enjoy, and I noticed a lot of you do ask me what franchises would I like to see in LEGO Dimensions, so I thought, why not do a video on it? So, without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so the first franchise we're going to be talking about today is, of course, The Matrix. The Matrix is one of my favourite movies of all time. I've seen it so many times, and to this day, I still love it. I do enjoy the other two as well. I don't think they're as bad as a lot of people say they are, but the first one is absolutely incredible. Now then, how do I think The Matrix could be added to LEGO Dimensions? Well, what I think they could do is add a level pack. Now, what I've been reading recently about the level packs in an interview is that basically, for example, the Back to the Future pack is Back to the Future 1 through 3 molded into one. So you get a bit of both from each movie. And I think that's a really cool design choice. So I personally think you could do the same with The Matrix. However, I kind of start thinking, you know, maybe if that did happen, a lot of people would be like, oh no, I just want to play through the first movie, and that's fine. I completely understand that, because that makes sense to me as well. I'd probably want to play through the first one more so than the others, but I still think there's no harm in adding just a little bit of content from the other two movies as well, because obviously, you know, they do exist. Now then, on to the character. Now obviously, if you add The Matrix to LEGO Dimensions, who better than Neo to be the playable character in a level pack? I mean, Neo is one of the coolest characters I've ever seen in a movie. He's just so awesome. Now obviously, gameplay wise, he'd be a ton of fun to play as. For starters, you know, on the ground, of course, he's got tons of combat moves. He would be able to do so many moves when he takes out his enemies, and if that's not enough, he could of course get his weapons out. He could shoot his dual pistols. He could be able to fly as well. Imagine being able to fly around Middle Earth as Neo, shooting orcs from a height. I mean, that sounds so awesome. I seriously think Neo could be one of the coolest characters in LEGO Dimensions if he was added. He's also, of course, extremely acrobatic and everything, so there's tons of things you could do with Neo in this game, and I'm sure, you know, the developers at TT Games, if they did add him, I'm sure they would look over the first 3 movies and just see how much potential he has. I'm really surprised we haven't had a next generation Matrix video game, because honestly, I think there's a heck of a lot of potential there, but, you know, hopefully I see that one day. But if this is added to LEGO Dimensions, if even just Neo himself and nothing else, not even a level pack, I would be extremely happy. Now we move on to the vehicle, and the vehicle was kind of tricky to think of because I personally think they don't really use vehicles that much in the Matrix, you know, especially Neo. I mean, why would Neo need to use a Matrix if you just fly everywhere? That's what I think. So the best I could think of was the Neb, which is of course Morpheus's ship. I think this is a cool design. I love the design in the actual movie. I couldn't find the best picture of it, so I hope this is actually the ship because it does look like it. You know, it's a cool ship. I don't really know a lot of things it could do, but I still think it would be a nice addition to the game and fit well, you know, with a Matrix pack at least. And last but not least of the Matrix content that you could add for LEGO Dimensions, we have the phone booth. Now you're probably thinking, what? A phone booth? What would a phone booth do? Now bear with me because I think this is an extremely cool idea. So basically, I'm not sure how it would work for other characters, but let's say you walk into it as Neo, you know, you're in the hub world or whatever. There could be a really cool looking Matrix hub world, a city or something, but you're in that world, and then you put the phone booth on the toy pad and you go up to the phone booth. Once you're inside the phone booth, Neo will pick up the phone, and then all of a sudden you put back into the real world and you wake up. and then you can walk around a small interior of the Neb ship interior. I think that would be extremely cool. I kind of got the idea from the TARDIS, because I just love the idea of it being not only a vehicle, but also an interior. It's just so true to that franchise, but it's also a really cool interior. You know, you get loads of different versions as well, because there's tons of desktop themes for the TARDIS. So I think it would be really cool if you just go into a phone booth, answer the phone, and then you wake up and you can walk around the interior of the Neb. And there could even be characters from the movie, like, you know, doing their things, typing on the keyboard or anything like that. Trinity might be there, you might be able to speak to them. I think that would be an extremely cool addition to the game, and yeah, it would just be awesome. So that's pretty much it for the Matrix side of the content. I mean, you can of course see here Morpheus and Trinity, who I think would be great additions as well. They're just as cool as Neo. You know, they could appear in a fun pack separately or something like that, or maybe even a team pack. But I think there's definitely a lot of potential behind the Matrix for LEGO Dimensions. And of course, it is actually a Warner Brothers property, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think I read that it's to do with Warner Brothers. So that makes it even more possible for it to happen. So hopefully it does. Alright guys, so now we're going to move on to the Hunger Games. Alright, so as I said, here of course we have Hunger Games. Now the Hunger Games is an awesome franchise. I really enjoyed every movie that they've put out for this franchise so far, and I'm looking forward to Mockingjay Part 2. Now then, when I was thinking about how this was going to be added to LEGO Dimensions, it was quite tricky, because the first thing that came into my mind was, oh, obviously it's going to be a level pack. That would be great, because then you'd have Katniss. I wasn't sure of, you know, the vehicle, and then I wasn't sure of the gadget, because it was just really tricky to think of. And of course, you know, it would be great to have a level pack, because you get to play through all the movies, and you might even get to play through the Hunger Games, you know, the 74th Hunger Games, where you actually got to participate in it. How awesome would that be? That would be a very different level compared to others that are already in the game. But I kind of settled on a fun pack, because it's really tricky to think of what a team pack would be as well, because I thought, okay, well, you could have Peter and you could have Katniss, but then I'd have to think of 2 vehicles and I could only think of 1, and it was just really confusing. So I just settled on a fun pack. So the character I thought of was obviously Katniss. You'd have to add this character to the game because she's just awesome. And yeah, that was kind of the only thing I could think of, and the only character I'd really want to see in the game. There could be others as well. I mean, if they ever made a full-on LEGO Hunger Games, there's tons of possibilities, tons of characters you could add and stuff like that. But if you're just adding one, I would say Katniss is the best, because obviously, you know, she's the lead. And when I was thinking about this, obviously she'd have her bow and arrow, that's obvious. And, you know, we have Legolas already in LEGO Dimensions, and he has a bow and arrow from the Lord of the Rings. But why not have 2? You know, there's no harm in having 2 characters that have bow and arrows. Plus, they could make her a little different. She might be able to have fire arrows or explosive arrows or something like that, kind of catered towards, you know, Green Arrow or Hawkeye, you know, something like that from Lego Batman 3 or Lego Marvel's Avengers. So I think Katniss would be really cool, and she could, you know, have similar abilities to Owen. She might be able to cut Lego foliage, things like that. She might be able to camouflage her stealth. There's just loads of stuff. Basically, when TT Games look at making a new game, they always re-watch a movie or a TV show or something to get the idea of how that character could play, what fun things you could add, and stuff like that. So I'm sure if they actually took on this franchise and added it to the LEGO Dimensions, they would have no problem at all. They'd be able to think of some really cool stuff. Now, the last thing to mention for the Hunger Games that you could add is a vehicle. So the vehicle was kind of tricky to think of, but the best I could really think of was the hovercraft. And it's a really cool looking vehicle when you see it in the movie. It's all glowing blue and everything. It looks great, and it would be fun to fly around in. Obviously, in the movie, it's pretty big, but in the main game, it would be a brick build. It would be a smaller version. But obviously, you know, we're used to that. And I kind of didn't like that at first. I have to be honest. I wasn't a huge fan of how it was a mini DeLorean and stuff like that. But now I love it. I actually really like the idea of that, because it's Lego, you know, it's really detailed little Lego models, and they also look super cool in games. So yeah, I have no problems with that. Now, another thing to mention with vehicles and gadgets and things, it's really difficult to think of what 3 forms these things could turn into, because obviously with LEGO Dimensions, each vehicle can turn into 2 other forms. So I really couldn't think of anything for the other vehicles, so I'll leave that up to you guys, because it was just so tricky to think of. But again, if TT Games took this on, I'm sure they'd have no problem of thinking of some cool combinations that you could make with the hovercraft. So this one might be quite surprising to a lot of you, but I would love to see Planet of the Apes added to LEGO Dimensions, or more importantly, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I think that one would be the coolest addition to the game, because, I don't know, I love that movie. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and I can't wait for the next one, which I think is called War of the Planet of the Apes, so that should be good. But yeah, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is an awesome movie. Now, obviously, the characters. So basically, what I thought of with this pack is I thought of a team pack. I think a team pack would suit this best, even though I would absolutely love to see a level. I think, you know, they could make up for that by just making another adventure world. And I really hope with each, you know, franchise that's added to LEGO Dimensions, I hope they get an adventure world, because it would just, you know, keep the game going for years and years and years. You'd never want to stop playing, because you'd always have something exciting to run around in every year. And of course, you can bring the new characters into the old franchise adventure world, so that'd be great. So basically, the characters is Caesar and Koba. Caesar and Koba would be great in a team pack. I think for starters, Caesar would be awesome. I think he could have a staff if you wanted him to, but you never really see him use a lot of weapons, really, do you? You kind of just see him, he kind of takes charge, and he could be strong, you know, he'd be able to have a lot of combat or something like that, but he never really uses weapons as much as the other characters, like Koba. So I think he would be more to do with melee combat, and he'd be very athletic and things, he'd be able to climb things. I think it would be cool if, you know, when they update the game and they add other franchises, they could add, like, certain trees, and only, like, Planet of the Apes characters can climb those trees, and they can reach certain secret areas and things like that. I think that would be a nice addition, and, you know, kind of make those characters unique, and not only that, but also useful. You've got to make a character useful. You can't just add them and think, yeah, there they are, but they don't do anything that you actually need them to. So it's good to always make them useful. Now for Koba, I thought of some pretty cool ideas for Koba. Koba is extremely evil. He's a really, really bad guy. Yeah, he's just really bad. Now, with Koba, obviously, he would kind of have similar moves to Caesar. He could, you know, be really athletic and things like that. He would be able to possibly attack when he's close combat and stuff like that. But I think the main thing that I thought of with Koba is give him, like, two dual machine guns, because he's just crazy. You know, he's crazy in the movie when he's, I think he's on the horse and he's just shooting them everywhere. I would love that, to be able to do that, you know, in-game, whenever you want. You just running around with machine guns as Koba on a horse. I mean, that would just be super cool and look great in LEGO as well. And I know a lot of people, you know, might think that's a bit too violent for LEGO games, and that's perfectly understandable. But what I always think of when I add, you know, when I think of a character that might have a gun or something like that, I always think of what they've done in the past. And, you know, you've had for starters, you've had a Hawkeye who has a bow and arrow. Bow and arrows can be violent, and of course Katniss as well. And you have Black Widow, she's had guns. The Punisher's had guns. Blade has a sword. You know, there's been loads of the characters that have had violent weapons over the years in LEGO games, and people never really take notice. It doesn't really matter because it's just LEGO. So I personally think they would have no problem adding Koba and giving them, you know, a variety of weapons and stuff like that. Now then, obviously with a team pack, it comes with 2 vehicles, and I couldn't really think of a second vehicle except just horses. I think horses are, you know, the best thing to add for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I think it would be great, like I said, to just ride a horse as Koba, shooting machine guns everywhere. I just think that would be awesome. But if you guys can think of a second vehicle that could add to that team pack, please let me know in the comments, because I'd be really interested to know. Now, with this next franchise, I'd just like to give a huge shout out to my good friend Pat McCullough, because he did help me a heck of a lot with thinking of ideas for this franchise. So big thank you to you, Pat, because I really appreciate it. Now then, yes, as you can see from the image, this franchise is, of course, Jaws. And you're probably thinking, what? Jaws in a LEGO game? That's quite a violent addition, and I completely understand where everyone is coming from, because it does have some very violent scenes. But here's the thing, this is why I think it's possible. Well, there's 2 reasons. One is, if you look in certain stores, you can actually see a poster of LEGO Dimensions. I'm not sure which stores, but I've seen it a lot online, and I think I've seen it in a few stores as well. And basically, it says, we're going to need a bigger imagination. Now, that is, of course, similar to the line from Jaws, you're going to need a bigger boat. Which, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think that's just a coincidence. I think that Jaws might be added, so I think it'd be cool. Now then, the second reason is, if you've played LEGO Jurassic World, you'll know that those characters appear in that game. You know, they do appear in a cameo. It's a shame you didn't get to unlock them as playable characters, because that would have been awesome. But yeah, they actually appear in a cameo in, I think, the Lost World. So I don't see why it's not possible to just take those characters, take those designs from that game, and just put them in. It's not the case of if the movie is violent, you just kind of want the characters. If they didn't want to explore, that movie because it's violent, just put them in a fun pack or a team pack or something like that, because then, you can just say, yes, these are characters from that movie, but we don't really have any content from that movie. Although an adventure world would be amazing. Can you imagine that? It has like a beach and docks and you can jump in the water and stuff like that. That would be great. Now, with the characters, basically, you could have any character, really. I think with the fun packs and team packs and level packs, you could add all the characters from that movie. You could have Quint, he could be armed with a harpoon gun, Martin Brody could be armed with a rifle, and Matt Hooper could be armed with a spear. I think it's really hard to think of which one would fit in each. So I personally think what you could have is a team pack with Martin Brody and Matt Hooper, and then you could have a fun pack with Quint. I think that's the best way you could do it. But if you guys think of any better ideas, please let me know, because that would be awesome. Now then, with Jaws, obviously you would have to have a cool vehicle from the movie, an iconic vehicle. And I think the best thing that you could add if they were going to do a team pack or a fun pack or whatever would be the Orca, which is of course Quint's boat. Quint's boat, what he uses in the movie, that's seen pretty much in the whole thing. And that could be in, like I said, if you had Quint in a fun pack and you had Martin Brody and Matt Hooper in the other team pack, you could just have Quint and the Orca, and I think that would be really cool. So with the Orca, here's the thing. With LEGO Dimensions' vehicles, it seems that when a vehicle can actually be used on water or underwater, it seems to be that they can also be used on land as well. So I guess, some of the free forms, you could maybe have a flying boat or a boat with wheels that you can just drive around on. It's hard to think of at this point in time because, we haven't fully seen everything from LEGO Dimensions and we haven't seen all the combinations. But hopefully, when we see more, we'll be able to get a rough idea of how other vehicles and other franchises could work in this game. Alright, so the last thing to mention for, of course, Jaws is a gadget, and literally the best gadget that I could think of is Jaws. And the reason I'm saying that is if you look at the content we already have in the game, specifically Doctor Who, you can see we have K9. Now, K9 actually follows the player around and does his own thing, but you can also jump on top of him and ride him around and control him. So what if we did the same for Jaws? What if you could play as Quint and just jump on the on the back of Jaws and just swim around? I think that would be great. But then, of course, if you don't want to, he goes about his own thing and does whatever he wants or follows you or something like that. That would also be pretty scary if you're swimming around, Atlantis or something like that, and then all of a sudden Jaws just comes out of nowhere and you forgot he was on the toy pad. I think that'd be pretty cool. Now, another thing you could do with Jaws is, obviously, you have to make these things useful. They've got to have a purpose. And one idea that I thought of is, what if there's, really strong rope that no other character can cut, and you play as Jaws and you go under the water, and then you can actually bite it with your teeth to break the rope. And then, of course, something could fall, a mini-kit could unlock, could be part of a quest, anything. It's completely up to them on how they would want that to work. But I think it would be a cool addition, and I also think he'd be very useful as well. Alright, so last but not least of the franchises is Star Wars The Force Awakens. Now, obviously, it could be just Star Wars in general. You could have content from the original trilogy, the Clone Wars, even Rebels would be cool. But I've chosen The Force Awakens because that's the most recent, and I just think there's tons of stuff in that movie that would be really cool in this game. But one thing I want to mention about this is I know a lot of people have been saying, are we going to see Star Wars and are we going to see Marvel? Now, personally, I thought Star Wars would be impossible. I just didn't see it happening due to Disney Infinity already having it. I just didn't see how it would work for two Toys to Life games to have the same franchise. I just wasn't sure how that would work. But now I'm hearing rumors that we might actually be getting this. This might happen. I'm not entirely sure if it's gonna happen. It would be great if it did, but I thought, if we're gonna hear rumors, why not, include it in the list? Because Star Wars is awesome. I love Star Wars, and I would love to see it in LEGO Dimensions. Who doesn't want to run around Middle-earth fighting orcs as Kylo Ren? I mean, that sounds incredible. Now, obviously, another thing to mention is a lot of people have probably noticed there's no Marvel in this. Personally, I think Star Wars has a way better chance of appearing in this game than Marvel, because I just don't see how DC Comics and Marvel can be in two games at once. I don't see how that's ever going to happen. I could be wrong, I've been wrong a lot of times before. TT games always surprise me, but personally, if you want Marvel, I'm sorry, but I really don't see it happening anytime soon. But enough of that, let's talk about the characters that I would like to see from Star Wars The Force Awakens in LEGO Dimensions. Alright, so first off, here of course we have Rey and Finn, who, aside from of course Poe Dameron as well, these two look like the, main characters of Star Wars The Force Awakens, the main new characters that haven't been in Star Wars before. Now, I'm going to talk about these together, but personally I think they would be split into two packs. So let's talk about Finn first. Now, personally, from what I've seen from the trailers, now don't get me wrong though, Rey looks like an awesome character, and Daisy Ridley looks like she's going to knock it out of the park. But judging by what I've seen from the trailers, it looks like Finn is probably the main character in the story. Because here's the thing, at first we saw he was dressed as a stormtrooper in the first trailer. Then we saw that, he was using a blaster and stuff like that. And now we know he actually has a lightsaber. Now, if a character has a lightsaber, to me personally, that means they're a big deal, And especially someone like Finn, who's evolved from a stormtrooper to a guy, just a guy with a blaster, all the way up to a guy with a lightsaber. I think he's a big deal, and I think John Boyega is going to be awesome in this movie as that character. But I definitely think that Rey is also a main character as well. So basically, my idea of how Finn could be added is a level pack. So the level pack would come with a level based on Star Wars The Force Awakens. It would come with Finn, and his abilities would, be a blaster, and he'd have a lightsaber as well. But then you could also, of course, have a vehicle and gadget. Now, honestly, I couldn't think of a vehicle. We haven't seen a lot of vehicles. We haven't actually seen Finn drive one vehicle yet, I think, but I'm sure the developers, if they got the chance to do this, they would just ask Disney and they'd be able to help them, choose a vehicle for Finn. But for a gadget, I think it would be really cool to see BB-8. Now, we haven't seen a lot of what BB-8 can do, but he is a droid, so he's probably useful. He can probably hack and stuff, but I just think BB-8 would be awesome. Just having him like K9 where he follows you around, just watching him roll behind you, I just think would be amazing. And of course, with a lot of the gadgets like the arcade machine from Midway Arcade and K9, regardless of what they look like, you can still ride them. So it'd be funny riding on the top of BB-8's head and, being Finn and just watching it roll around while you're on top of it. I think that would be pretty hilarious. Now then, with Rey, I kind of thought it would be fun to have a team pack if it came with BB-8 and a speeder, but then, BB-8 should be really in Finn's pack, to be honest. So what I kind of came up with for Rey is a fun pack. I think a fun pack suits Rey best because you could have Rey, she could have a staff and everything, it would be awesome, but she could also have a speeder, and I think that vehicle will be a great addition to the game. It just looks so cool, when you watch it in the trailers and she's speeding through that Tatooine-like planet, which I believe is actually being confirmed not to be Tatooine, so that's interesting. But yes, that's just really cool, so I would love to see that vehicle in the game. And these are my two choices of what they could do for Star Wars The Force Awakens. Like I said, you could have content from the original trilogy, from the Clone Wars, from Rebels, but you could also have characters from this film as well. You could have Kylo Ren, would be a really awesome addition. I would love to see that character because he looks awesome. And you could even have Captain Phasma. I think she'd be a great addition to the game, but it's all up to TT Games, and I'm very excited to see what they bring to this game in the near future. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it for this video. I mean, that was my top 5 franchises that I'd like to see in LEGO Dimensions. I personally think each of these are awesome. I'd love to see all of them, and personally, if just one of them was announced, I'd still be happy because, like I said, every single one that I've talked about I think is worthy of being added to LEGO Dimensions. But my question to you is, what top 5 franchises would you like to see in LEGO Dimensions in the near future? And if you can't think of 5, don't worry, just send me as many as you can because I'm really interested to know. Alright guys, so I want to thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for lots more videos real soon, and as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe.